Hi, everyone. So I had a really good question in the group that I had a few days ago. We met in the Visionaries. This is a monthly call. I call it the Conscious Relationships Group, and the Visionaries is my private membership community. So I wanted to come on here and expand on this beautiful question. By the way, I love recording at this time because the sun is so beautiful in here in this room. And so he asked such a really good, deep question, and it had to do with victim mentality and how I work with it. And so I speak about how one of my greatest blessings has definitely been to wake up and come out of victim mentality. And I know this is it can be a very tough topic for people with lots and lots of nuance. And the gist of his question was really about how do we work with victim mentality while also being able to have compassion for the things that we've been through and to make sure that we don't bypass the tough stuff. This is such a good question because this is a deep conversation. And especially when I work with clients one-on-one, it's woven into my work with people because I'm all about empowerment. And I teach people also about the drama triangle and how we can really transmute and transcend it, which I believe that we actually have to do right now. It's part of where we're being nudged to grow and evolve in terms of humanity at large. The drama triangle is something most of you are familiar with. It has the three positions of victim, persecutor, and rescuer. So most of us kind of have like a position that we're primarily in most of the time, but then a lot of times, just because we're human, we tend to go all three of the positions on the triangle, maybe in the course of a day, we'll sort of go through them. The interesting thing about the drama triangle is that these are actually archetypes, but they're in the lower expression of the archetype has each one has a higher expression actually. So it's not necessarily about stepping off the drama triangle as much as it is transmuting each of the positions into the higher expression. So each has an evolutionary path that it goes through. Let's talk about the victim. The victim is someone who is in a position in their life where they really feel like life is against them. I was in victim mentality for a long time, so I have a lot of compassion for this. Victims often have that poor me mentality. And so this is where it gets a little tricky because I never teach it in a way such that I tell you that victims don't exist. I've heard some new agey spiritual people teach it like that, and it's not wise. There's so much I could say about that. I actually don't agree with the way it's taught quite a bit. Because the reality of on the earth plane, on the 3D level, is that there are victims, especially when we're talking about children and traumatic childhoods and abuse that happens. That's very tricky territory. So the victim position, though, has this higher expression as an archetype, and it really is one where we learn how to break free from victim mentality and step into creatorship for our life. And so in the empowerment triangle, the victim actually becomes the creator. They learn that the first step on the path, because it doesn't happen like this for most people, when you start to wake up and understand that maybe some of these things are happening for a reason, because maybe I need to learn some things. Maybe I'm being stretched. Maybe I'm being called into a different way of living, a different way of being in my life. And so ultimately, that can lead to us feeling much more empowered rather than these passive sort of, I often say participants of life, but that's not really the right word because we're not actually participating. We're being passive and we feel like we're getting run over by things in life. It's a very disempowering place to be. And yet, when we can wake up and actually understand that so many things are happening for us, it can change the game. So I feel called to give a personal example here of how I woke up from victim mentality. And my therapist actually is the one that helped me And this is where 2026, so 12 years ago, my marriage collapsed and I began therapy for really for the first time in my life. It wasn't officially the first time, but it was the first time I actually was consistent. And we were in crisis mode. Things collapsed and we ended up trying to save things, going to couples therapy every week for 2 years, in addition to having our individual therapy every week for 2 years. And it was really intense. And that was the time period, although it was my dark night of the soul for those 2 years were devastating. That's the hardest time of my life. And I've been through hard things. I had a difficult childhood. I've had other chapters that were very hard, that were dark in my life, but that was the absolute rock bottom for me. So that was also my awakening. My therapist helped me to understand that I am not a victim. She also helped me to understand that relationships and what was going on between he and I wasn't living in a vacuum. I was actually co-creating it with him, which I didn't want to hear because I was the victim in that position, right? I was on some level, honestly, because there was disrespect. There was a lot of things going on where I wasn't loved, appreciated, respected, cared for in the way that I know now that I deserve. That was actually happening if you watched us from the outside. But there was this other level where I actually had to own, and my therapist helped me to understand I did not have any boundaries. I didn't know what standards were in relationships. I was not assertive. I was much more passive. And although there were times where I asserted myself and spoke up, it never went well. So I learned how to really, really dim my light, avoid things, sweep things under the rug. And this is something that she helped me to understand that that was my side of the street that was actually enabling the situation to continue. And I stayed in that relationship for almost 20 years. So there really weren't any consequences. This is the deep thing. And you can actually, if you want to hear all of my story, you can go to the podcast, listen to part one and part two. I just want to pause for a minute and say that those are actually good to listen to for multiple reasons. Number one, you'll get to know me better, what I've been through and what I've alchemized in my life. And you'll get to see how I moved from victim mentality into the process of alchemy to be able to turn those tough situations into my greatest blessings, to be able to really grow and evolve on a soul level. I don't just say those episodes to speak my story out loud and get attention. In fact, I'm a very private person. I would prefer not to, but it's a teaching because I show you how I was able to actually see with clear eyes what my lessons were that I needed to see and what I needed to take away. So the things that I had to learn coming out of that marriage, which we couldn't save it at the end of the day. So that's where all my work was born through that process. I had to build a spine. I had to learn about direct, open, assertive communication. I had to deeply heal my self-love and my self-worth. I had to learn what a boundary was. I had to put all this stuff into practice. And now these are the foundations that I teach hundreds of people. And I have, right? I've specialized in relationships since 2017, but I've been working with clients as a psychologist in groups and individually since 2011. So it's been a long time. But this is my mission and my life purpose, what I've been through. And so I don't just work on the foundations, I also take it all the way to the top because I am a deeply spiritual person and there's a path that has been shown to me that has been replicated by other people and substantiated by spiritual paths where you can actually use relationships for healing, for growth, for evolution, to be able to actually evolve. So I'm living this right now with my partner. I know how to do this in all of my relationships, actually, family, friends, with my son. And so I just wanted to let you know I go far beyond the foundation. So coming back to victim mentality, when we can understand that usually it's, but let's just focus on relationships right now, because this is where I apply it. And the people who come to me want to talk about relationships. So in relationships, we can step out of victim mentality when we Understand that sometimes it's actually okay to point the finger. This is another thing that people don't like to teach. But sometimes people actually have to learn how to say, hey, that's not okay what you're doing. People who have a more passive style of communication actually do need to learn how to actually have more assertive communication. And part of learning boundaries is actually to be able sometimes to say, hey, that doesn't feel good, right? And setting the limits. So there's actually part of what when I work with people who are very similar to me, I have to help them to build a spine, to build assertiveness, to learn boundaries, all with love. We don't lose our heart in the process. But these were the things that I needed to learn on a soul level that were being asked of me. And I wasn't allowed to skip past this in my life. So this is the thing for a lot of people. You can try to run, you can try to hide, you can try to sweep things under the rug, you can put your head in the sand, and I promise you, it's sometimes we have to do that. Actually, we do, right? We do. But we can't skip these lessons. You're going to get it over and over and over and over again because that is life that loves you. And I know it's hard, but life loves you more than you will ever know. And it's going to give you all of the opportunities for you to grow and evolve. So I wasn't able to skip these steps, right? In fact, with boundaries, I'm still going deeper and deeper and deeper into more and more layers. Sometimes I joke with my clients that some of us are here to get our PhD in boundaries because that's just how it is. But the victim to creator, right? When you transmute from the victim position into the creator is when we actually wake up and realize that we have agency in our life. Especially as adults, right? We do have the responsibility to pick ourselves up. And this is the key of what I want to say. And to get back um, to get back to his question, right? I'm not going to name his name, but he was in the group in the visionaries. We actually have to learn how to hold deep compassion and love for ourselves, and sometimes be able to feel the very difficult emotions around the thing, whether that's trauma or a difficult situation. We don't bypass the emotional stuff on this path and in my teachings, but when you couple that also, right, it doesn't have to happen at the same time, but when you're also able to eventually take a breath and really ponder. This is where the higher mind comes in, and the heart and the mind work together here in terms of alchemy, feminine, masculine. The higher heart and the higher mind actually work together in this process. When we're able to, think about when you've hit, the floor. You're upset, you're crying, you gotta feel the emotions. We can't skip that step. But just think about after you've had like a really good cry and you take a breath and you feel like you've moved something out, right? You move something out. Maybe you're in a little bit more of a calm place now. When you start to come up and out, you're able to actually move into a little bit more of a clear head around it, where you can start to either on your own or working with someone like me that can help you understand, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And what am I meant to learn from this? Each and every difficult situation has soul lessons in it. This is the path of alchemy. And it's really interesting because you'll notice the polarities coming into play. The feminine is the heart, is the emotional landscape. The shadow of this is victim mentality, of romanticizing trauma, suffering, even getting stuck there. And it also, and then the ability to use the higher mind is the masculine, but the lower mind of the lower expression of thinking about it without actually feeling it. When these two are divorced, when the masculine and feminine are not in harmony, they're not working together. Sometimes what people want to do is they want to bypass the emotion. They want to maybe jump to either moving on with their life or using force of will to move on, which is okay sometimes, but you're not actually doing the work that your soul is calling you to do. So eventually you're going to have to do it. We cannot skip steps. So you can use force of will to just pick yourself up and move on. This is actually shadow. This can be shadow masculine when we do that too much. It's really interesting. These things map on to actually the right and the left politically. You'll hear that a lot of people on the conservative side are just like, get yourself up, right? Like they have this thing, like it's almost, I've also heard like total personal responsibility, right? But then they lack the heart, they lack having compassion even for themselves. This is like the archetype of like the coach who screams at you, right? To get the F up and go. And can you build strength like that? I mean, there's an aspect that you can bring into the higher where you use the healthy will and you start to work with the higher mind, right? This is pretty deep. I'm getting a little bit deeper than I wanted to in this video. But there's the shadow side of both, right? On the left, there's the shadow side of romanticizing trauma, wearing these identity badges of like, I am, this, I'm a whatever survivor, right? Trauma survivor. And you get really wrapped up into these identities, and then they become these prisons where you actually can't break out of the shell of them rather than using these things in a more fluid way to perform the alchemy. Let me take it back for a minute. So the way that I work, let me just kind of wrap it up and make it simplistic because it's going a little bit longer than I thought it would. The way I work with victim mentality is it's very important for us to not stay stuck in poor me, for us to understand that life is actually for us. It doesn't mean it's easy, but life is serving us the exact material and lessons that we need to evolve on a soul level. So that's really here. We can do it such that we have that awakened spiritual perspective and deep love and compassion for ourselves along the way, which sometimes includes actually breaking down. And sometimes you might feel sorry for yourself, right? Sometimes this is where it gets very nuanced. But as long as that doesn't become a permanent state, if you're really able to go into your heart and feel the grief, the sadness, the fear sometimes, the anger that's there, and that reminds me, Alchemy of the Heart is coming in a few days. That's where we actually learn how to work with fear, anger, sadness, and shame, and actually alchemize them, not bypassing them, but actually working with the material to then bring it into the higher expression of all of them. Because there's a reason and there's intelligence. There's a level of intelligence for each of these heavier emotions that people tend to avoid. So I'll teach you how to do that through the process of true alchemy. This is not social media, trendy word, alchemize. This is actually the real stuff. So victim mentality is something where when we break out of poor me and we start to understand that this is a school here for us to grow and evolve and heal and learn. And there's an upward trajectory once you start to live this path where life actually gets so good. This is where when you start to live this way, I have been living this way since I came up and out of my rock bottom. 2017 was really the year. It started a little bit early, but almost 10 years I've been on this path and I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I have a relationship beyond my wildest dreams. And so it's possible. And so anyway, we want to find the balance between like this sort of hardcore conservative thing about like 100% personal responsibility, never feel sorry for yourself, which the shadow can lack heart and lack compassion for everybody, including oneself. And then on the other side, you have like just a stewing in victim mentality and a romanticization of trauma. And unfortunately, although it seems very loving, it's actually not loving because it keeps people stuck. It keeps people stuck, and it's the opposite of empowering. So I know a lot of this is a little bit, especially if you're new to this, it can be a lot. The good thing is that I remember starting to talk about victim mentality and how I broke free probably starting in 2017 is when I started to teach about it. It was very triggering back then for people. People didn't want to hear it. But I've kept my eye on the collective over the past 10 years, and people are talking about it more and more, which is really, really good. It's a nuanced conversation, but I'll just kind of I'll end by saying the thing that I do still see though is that most people who are teaching about breaking out of victim mentality have swung too far over into the personal responsibility camp, and they lack compassion, they lack heart, and so it's imbalanced. It's actually imbalanced masculine without the feminine side of it. So we have to have both. I know this is kind of deep. And so, like, I'll just kind of start to leave it here. You can always reach out to me and book a free call even if you have questions about this and how to apply it to your life. I would love to help you. I can actually help very quickly with people who come to me to be able to cut through and show you exactly what you need to see, like from my heart to yours. I'm not telling people what to do, but because I've worked with literally thousands of people and I live this path and I see the pattern recognition on the collective, and when people come to me, I can help you, right? So that's a free offering that I provide. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to keep the free calls up because things are getting busy, but it's there for now. As well as, of course, you can book one-on-one sessions directly with me on my website, which is a deep, deep way to go. And it's an incredible investment in you, where it's very targeted, very powerful sessions. That even one session is life-changing. I had somebody come to me after just one session. She came back for the second session. She was crystal clear about something that she had spent years trapped in. And so the one-on-one sessions are very, very powerful. In addition to Alchemy of the Heart is coming on Monday. I'm recording this on June 6th, 2026. Alchemy of the Heart, the group program, very powerful. 7 weeks, emotional alchemy, fear, anger, sadness, and grief, shame, as well as the Alchemy of the Drama Triangle. Deep, deep, deep material as a group that we're going to be moving through. So that's going to launch on Monday, and then we'll start live on June 22nd. So I'd love to have you, regardless if you work with me one-on-one or in a group. And by the way, if you sign up for Alchemy of the Heart, you can add one-on-one sessions as well. I would love to support you. This work is very powerful. This year, I I am literally blown away by the transformations that are happening from the clients who come to me and are working one-on-one. So I know I've been speaking about this recently, but I am going to have a few of these clients on the podcast so you can hear in their own voice, in their own way, how they were able to completely transform their life. And it's just, this is all that I've ever wanted. And it makes me emotional because I know how much it's changed my life. And for me to be able to help people on this path, to do this work, to completely change things is everything to me. So thank you so much for being here. You can leave questions or comments in the comment section. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for you. So yeah, hope to see you soon. If you're new, please book a call, and hope to see you in Alchemy of the Heart or in a one-on-one session. Okay, bye everyone.